Truth is stranger than fiction.
Right. Sometimes, yeah.
And today,
It really is.
yeah, we are diving into a news report that proves that point.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So get ready to dig for some unexpected insights, because you and I
Right.
are about to explore some seriously strange stories.
Okay.
And all of this is pulled from a single episode
Oh,
of a Hebrew language podcast called The News Report You Deserve.
interesting.
And let's just say their idea of deserving is a little bit on the wild side. But luckily, I've got an expert with me who is ready to unpack it all.
Okay.
They're kind of like that friend
Okay.
who can find a profound life lesson in anything, like a dropped ice cream cone.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah. Don't worry, no ice cream was harmed in the making of this deep dive.
That's good.
But things are about to get a little messy because our first story involves a Florida man,
Of course it does.
a disagreement,
Oh, no.
and a weaponized slice of pizza.
What? A weaponized slice of pizza?
Yeah, you heard that right.
Wow. The
Weaponized
Sunshine State never disappoints.
a slice of pizza.
It's
It's almost comical,
yeah.
except assault is no laughing matter, so
Yeah, no, it's not good.
I think it speaks to a kind of societal absurdity where everyday objects
Right?
become stand-ins for deeper frustrations.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, like instead of saying I'm angry, you're saying take that pepperoni and extra cheese.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. This next story is for anyone who's ever pushed their limits, maybe a little too far.
We're talking about those moments where you're so close to the finish line, but your body has other plans.
Oh, I think we can all relate to that feeling, even if it doesn't involve, say, a marathon mishap.
Well, this one does. We're talking about a runner who literally had to overcome the call of nature in the middle of a race.
Oh no. That's a special kind of fear right there. I can't imagine. Did they power through?
Tamara Torlakson, yeah, she powered through. Not only did she finish the marathon, but she set a personal best.
You're kidding. That's incredible. I mean, talk about dedication.
Right, and what's even more impressive is her attitude about the whole thing. She's surprisingly open about it. Actually uses her story to encourage others, reminding us that it's not about avoiding the messy moments in life, but how we deal with them.
That's a pretty powerful message, especially coming from someone who just ran a marathon, well, under less than ideal circumstances.
Exactly. And it makes you think, doesn't it? Life's full of unexpected twists and turns. It's those moments, those curveballs that really test our resilience.
They definitely build character, that's for sure. A story that makes you wonder if we're talking divine intervention or a publicity stunt gone wild.
We're heading to Missouri, where a pastor is claiming he saw a woman's toes regrow right in the middle of a church service.
All right, now I'm all for a little faith-fueled wonder, but this one comes with a head-scratcher.
Oh yeah, there's a plot twist.
The pastor is all about protecting this woman's privacy, but at the same time,
He's already shared her full name, Chrissy Thompson, and the story of how she lost 3 toes in a shooting years ago.
it's like, pick a lane, right? You can't have it both ways.
Exactly. It makes you wonder if maybe getting the story out there was always part of the plan, especially when you consider the one thing missing from this so-called miracle.
The proof,
No photos, no videos, just the pastor's word.
which is where the internet steps in, doing what it does best.
Oh yeah, the internet sleuths got involved.
Big time. Someone even created showmethetoes.com, dedicated to getting to the bottom of it all.
Classic. Gotta love the internet's healthy skepticism.
Right. But it makes you think, what is it about these miracle stories that capture our attention, even when there's a good chance they're too good to be true?
I think it's that part of us that wants to believe in something bigger than ourselves, Those stories offer hope, a little something extraordinary in a world that can feel very ordinary.
A little escape from the mundane. Okay, so this story is a wild one. It's about a news anchor in Mississippi, Barbie Bassett. Now, this woman, she decided to quote Snoop Dogg on air.
Never a recipe for smooth sailing, quoting song lyrics on live TV. But it's the particular lyric she chose that landed her in hot water.
Yeah, because she didn't just quote any old Snoop lyric. She went for it with faux shizzle my nizzle.
Which, on the surface, might seem like harmless fun, right? Except nizzle is directly linked to a deeply offensive racial slur. Context is everything. And in this case, it was a major misstep.
Huge misstep. And the thing is, this wasn't even her first time putting her foot in her mouth, so to speak. She had a previous on-air incident involving a comment about a black reporter's grandmammy. I mean, seriously.
It's a shame, really, because it points to a larger issue within the media landscape. There's a real need for cultural sensitivity training. Language evolves. What might have been brushed aside in the past is now completely unacceptable, especially for someone in such a public-facing role. She's got a platform. People are listening.
He's like, your words have power, you know. Use them wisely,
Yeah.
or the internet will eat you alive.
That's one way to put it. It's not just about avoiding internet backlash, though. It's about genuinely understanding the impact of your words and striving for respectful communication, regardless of the audience.
Well said. Speaking of responsibility in communication, our next story takes a darker turn. We're heading to South America, where journalists are facing some terrifying dangers. We're talking about USB bombs being sent to reporters in Ecuador.
This is a chilling example of the stakes journalists face, especially when reporting on sensitive topics like drug trafficking and corruption, which is rampant in that region. We're not talking about veiled threats here. We're talking about targeted attacks.
And what's so unsettling is how they're doing it. It's not like some elaborate James Bond villain scheme. It's a USB drive, a regular everyday object you'd find in someone's desk drawer. I mean, to think that something so commonplace could be turned into a weapon, it's scary.
It really underscores the vulnerability of journalists around the world, especially those working in areas rife with organized crime. They're literally risking their lives to expose the truth, and they're being targeted with increasingly insidious methods.
It's a terrifying thought, honestly. Like, how do you even begin to guard against that? What's next? A bomb disguised as a coffee cup. It makes you realize just how important a free press is and how much courage it takes to do that job. It really puts things in perspective. The risks these journalists take just to bring us the news. And speaking of extraordinary, our next stop takes us to a courtroom in South Africa, where a murder trial took a very unexpected turn.
Picture a packed courtroom. The tension is high. The judge is expressing frustration over the lack of evidence in this really puzzling case.
And then what?
An owl flies in.
Wait, an owl. Like a real live owl just swoops into a courtroom.
A real live owl interrupting everything.
You can't make this stuff up.
Right. And of course, it caused quite the scene, but thankfully it was caught safely. A local owl rescue actually came and released it back into the wild. But still, you can't deny the timing of it all.
It's almost too perfect. Like something out of a movie.
It is a little cinematic.
And you know, owls have symbolized wisdom for centuries. Even justice in some cultures.
So was this feathered friend just a random visitor, or was it a sign from the universe weighing in on the case?
It definitely makes you think about the meaning we give to events, especially those that seem to defy logic. From owls in the courtroom to something even stranger watching up on beaches.
Oh, this has to be good. What's next in our lineup of bizarre news?
Right, imagine this. You're walking along the coast of France, enjoying the sea breeze when you spot something bright orange peeking out from the sand.
Let me guess. A flock of oddly sunburned flamingos. Not quite. You've stumbled upon a Garfield phone.
A Garfield phone. Hold on. Like the cartoon cat, Garfield.
The one and only. For years, residents of Brittany, France have been finding these relics from the 80s washed up on their shores.
Wow, that's very specific, and they've been popping up for years.
Decades, actually. Can you imagine these bright orange phones battered by the sea just appearing out of nowhere?
Talk about a mystery. Did anyone have any leads?
For the longest time, it was a total head-scratcher. Nobody could figure out where these Garfield phones were coming from. It's not like they're everyday cargo, right?
You got that right.
Yeah.
So, what was the big reveal? How did the mystery end?
Well, it took a shipping container lost at sea for over 30 years to finally spill the beans, so to speak.
Get out of here. Are you serious?
Totally. A local farmer recognized the Garfield phones from news reports, put two and two together, and realized he'd discovered the source years ago.
This just keeps getting better. So where was this treasure trove of vintage phones hiding?
Tucked away in a sea cave, of all places.
Wow. So do we know where this container was headed? Or where it even came from originally?
That part remains a mystery. It's like a piece of the puzzle is still missing.
But hey, that's kind of fitting, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about Garfield phones washing up on beaches for decades. A little mystery just comes with the territory.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that some things are just unexplainable, and that the ocean, it's full of surprises. Speaking of surprises, our next story takes us from the beaches of France to the friendly skies, where a routine flight took a very unexpected turn.
Now this I gotta hear. Lay it on me. We're talking about a pilot who falls ill mid-flight,
Oh, no.
leaving a passenger
Oh, my goodness.
who has absolutely zero flight experience
Oh, wow.
to land the plane.
No.
Yeah, this isn't a drill. This actually happened.
Wow, that's That's intense.
It's like that moment in a movie where someone yells, "Does anyone here know how to fly this thing?"
Yeah.
And you're thinking, please tell me there's a pilot in the house.
Yeah.
But in this case, there wasn't.
Oh, goodness.
Just an ordinary person thrust into an extraordinary situation.
Wow. And that's where the unexpected hero narrative comes in.
Right.
Faced with overwhelming pressure and potential disaster,
Mm-hmm.
this passenger managed to land that plane.
Oh, yeah.
It speaks to the incredible adaptability of the human brain.
It really does.
We often don't know what we're capable of until we're thrown into the deep end.
That's true.
Right.
It makes you wonder if there's a hidden pilot in all of us,
Right.
just waiting for the right or maybe wrong moment to emerge.
Exactly. Exactly.
But speaking of unexpected situations,
Okay.
our next story takes us from the high skies to the hallowed halls of art history.
All right.
It involves a school principal,
Okay.
a sixth-grade class,
Mm-hmm.
and one very famous statue.
Ah.
I'm talking, of course, about Michelangelo's David.
Ah.
You know it. The case of the censored David.
Right.
It sounds like the title of a mystery novel, doesn't it?
It really does.
But the reality, as you know, is anything but fictional.
That's right.
A parent complained that the statue was inappropriate for children,
Wow.
leading to the principal's forced resignation.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a powerful reaction.
It really highlights this ongoing tension
Right.
between artistic expression and what some might consider controversial,
Mm.
especially regarding nudity.
Especially regarding nudity with Michelangelo's David. Like, come on, this is a classic.
I know.
This is something that's been studied and admired for centuries.
Right.
It feels like we're hitting a point where even the classics aren't safe
It's true. And it's
from scrutiny.
interesting because this isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right.
We are living in an age of heightened sensitivity around what children are exposed to,
Yes.
especially online.
Of course. Yeah.
Parents are understandably concerned about, hypersexualization
Mm-hmm.
and the potential negative influence of certain imagery.
Right.
But the David situation raises the question,
What's that?
where do we draw the line?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And who gets to decide what's considered art versus inappropriate when it comes to education?
Right. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Because on the one hand,
Yeah.
you have this work of art that celebrates the human form, considered a cornerstone of Western art history.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, you have valid concerns about context
Right.
and age appropriateness.
Mm-hmm. So how do you reconcile those two things?
It's a very complex issue with no easy answers.
Right.
And I think the censored David
Yes.
becomes a lightning rod for these larger conversations about censorship, artistic freedom, and the role of education in shaping young minds.
Wow.
It forces us to confront our own biases and ask ourselves, are we protecting children
Mm-hmm.
or sheltering them from important cultural dialogues?
That's a great point. It's like trying to teach kids about the ocean, but keeping them away from the beach.
Right. Like you can't fully appreciate one without the other.
Exactly. And that kind of leads us back to something we touched on earlier,
Okay.
which is that part of what draws us to these bizarre news stories is the humor of it all.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
There's that wait, what factor.
Yes.
That makes us want to share it with everyone we know. It's more than just like, Florida man strikes again,
Right. It's true. On a psychological level,
Yeah.
humor, even when it's rooted in the absurd,
Mm-hmm.
can be a powerful coping mechanism.
Like how?
Well, we laugh at the unexpected, the strange, even the slightly unnerving.
Yes.
Because it helps us process
Yeah.
the anxieties and uncertainties of life. It's a way of reclaiming a sense of control
Yeah.
in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming.
So by laughing at the pizza throwing assailant,
Mm-hmm.
we're not condoning the act itself.
No, of course no.
We're just finding a way to deal with the absurdity of it all.
Exactly. And let's not forget the element of schadenfreude,
Oh, yeah.
which I'll admit isn't the most flattering aspect of human nature. But there's a reason why we sometimes find humor in other people's misfortunes,
Yeah.
especially when those misfortunes are presented in a relatively harmless way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say, a marathon runner having a very public accident.
Right. It's like, oh, thank goodness that wasn't me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It allows us to feel this fleeting sense of relief, this little moment of, at least my life isn't that interesting.
Exactly.
But beyond the humor, I think these bizarre news stories, they also act as a kind of cultural mirror, They reflect our collective anxieties.
It's like holding up a funhouse mirror to society, right?
Yes.
Like warping the reflection just enough to make us laugh,
Mm-hmm.
but then we look a little bit closer. And we're like, oh, wait a minute, that's actually us.
That's it. And that, I think, is the unexpected gift of bizarre news. It encourages us not to take ourselves too seriously,
Right.
to find humor in unexpected places, and to always remain curious about the world around us,
Yeah.
even the parts that make us shake our heads in disbelief.
I like that.
Right.
So the next time you stumble upon a headline that makes you do a double take,
Mm-hmm.
don't just dismiss it as clickbait.
Yeah.
Take a moment
Think about it.
to consider what it might be saying about us, about the world we live in,
Mm-hmm.
about the strange and wonderful ways we navigate this human experience.
That's all connected.
Because who knows?
Yeah.
You might just uncover a surprising insight or two,
Or 10.
and you'll definitely get a good laugh along the way. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the wild world of bizarre news. From toe-regrowing pastors and courtroom owls to Garfield phones and marathon mishaps, it's safe to say reality is full of surprises.
Definitely keeps things interesting. And, I think these stories, they remind us to hold on to that sense of wonder we all have, to embrace the unexpected and find those moments of humor even in the strangest places.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So the next time you think you've seen it all, remember there's always a bizarre news story out there just waiting to remind you that truth is often stranger and a lot more entertaining than fiction.